In a universe ruled by silence and
Hello
war,
there.
one planet left behind
What are you
something no
looking
weapon
for
could
us?
destroy. Not a machine, not a virus,
You're
but a
1,000
feeling,
years too late.
one the enemy
We've
never
already
expected.
won.
Laughter. Today we uncover the forgotten legacy of Earth, a story so powerful it made the stars remember.
They're not invading. They're reminding us who we were.
The year was 3904. For more than 1,000 years, the galaxy had existed in a state of artificial peace. 12 alien civilizations, each once apex predators of their own corners of space, had signed the Silence Accord, a mutual agreement to suspend hostilities after centuries of bloodshed that nearly annihilated them all. Planets had been shattered, moons carved into war stations, suns collapsed. Enough was enough. To preserve the balance, they agreed to isolate the one species they all distrusted the most, humans. Humanity had once been considered a wild card, too emotional, too adaptable. They laughed in the face of fear and mourned in the heat of victory. No other species could understand them. And so in the year 2872, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to sever all contact with Earth and erase it from stellar maps. It was as if humanity had never existed. What no one expected was that Earth agreed. For the next millennium, Earth went silent. No signals, no probes, no activity, just quiet. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity was presumed extinct, either wiped out by their own hand or evolved into something unrecognizable. The peace held, empires flourished, new generations of aliens grew up with bedtime. Stories about the terrifying humans who once laughed during battle, but those were just myths, right? Then one morning it came. A signal, faint, encrypted, undeniably human. It was intercepted in the Orion sector, deep within restricted space. The signal didn't contain coordinates or threats. Just a single sentence, pulsing on repeat in dozens of ancient Earth languages. We are still here, and we remember. Panic swept across the galactic alliances. The old ones stirred. The archives were reopened. Ancient war footage, deleted by order, was recovered. Battles against humanity that had once been classified as inconclusive were studied again. But this time, the outcome was different. Aliens began to realize a horrific truth. Humanity had never lost. They had simply walked away. The Vernok Empire, most prideful of the 12, was the first to act. Their emperor, Glavoktir, appeared on the Galactic Core transmission, net, and made a declaration that shook the galaxy. Let it be known. We, the Vernok, shall wipe out the Earthborn before they rise again. We declare war upon the humans. In seconds, the transmission was echoed by 7 other species. War fleets, mobilized. Superweapons, unseen for centuries, were unearthed. The silence. Accord was broken. The galaxy braced for another dark era. But no one expected what came next. Because as millions of warships moved toward Earth, humanity replied, not with weapons, not with threats, but with laughter. A live transmission blinked into every galactic frequency. A single human face appeared, old, calm, and unmistakably confident. The background was charred black. A rusted world map hung behind him like a relic of a dead civilization. He leaned forward into the camera, looked directly into the soul of the galaxy, and smiled. Then he said only one sentence. You're 1,000 years too late. We've already won. The screen cut to black. The galaxy froze. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the aliens remembered what fear tasted like. For days, the galaxy stood silent, shaken by a sentence that echoed louder than any war cry. You're 1,000 years too late. We've already won. The alien armadas didn't halt, but they hesitated. The Vernok fleet, comprised of over 6 million warships armed with antimatter suns and plasma storms, closed in on Earth's coordinates. But something felt wrong. The system was lifeless. No satellites, no broadcasts, no planetary defenses. Earth was dark, almost primitive. From orbit, Earth appeared ruined. Scorched continents, flooded coasts, cratered skies. To the Vernok High Commanders, it looked like a post-apocalyptic grave. The Empire laughed. Emperor Glavoktir ordered an immediate descent. But before the first cruiser could breach the stratosphere, it vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed, erased. One moment it was there, hovering above the Pacific Trench, and the next, it ceased to exist. Not a trace, not even a signal delay. The entire ship and its 40,000 crew members had been deleted from reality. The commander of the fleet, General Skarnak, blinked at the data. He replayed the sensor logs over and over. There was no anomaly, no impact, just nothing. And then came the voice. Not over comms, not through radio, inside their ships, inside their minds. "You are entering the memory of Earth. We warned you." Panic erupted. Vernok commanders began shouting across the fleet. Systems glitched. Engines melted. Artificial gravity reversed in dozens of cruisers, killing thousands as they floated screaming into bulkhead ceilings. Time loops began forming, soldiers living the same 10 seconds over and over, watching themselves die endlessly. The fleet was being unwritten, and far beneath the surface of the ruined Earth, deep within what was once Siberia, lay the source of it all, buried under 3 miles of stone and abandoned steel. Project Mirth. Mirth wasn't a weapon. It was something else. Something alien, yet entirely human. Created during humanity's final century above ground, it was designed not to defend Earth, but to replace the idea of war itself. It was the first successful convergence of human emotion, memory, and quantum data, a sentient lattice of every experience, trauma, and hope Earth had ever known, compressed into one entity. It didn't attack ships. It erased their purpose. It didn't destroy enemies. It made them forget why they existed. Mirth had no guns. It didn't need them. It had understanding. And in a twisted miracle of evolution, it had learned that the most terrifying weapon in the universe was a human laugh. The Vernok fleets began firing blindly into Earth's surface. Atomic cores, dimensional rifts, solar lances. The planet shook, but Mirth didn't respond. It didn't retaliate. Instead, it released another signal across every alien war channel, in every known language. A single question. "Do you remember why you hate us?" And that's when the Vernok began screaming. Not from pain, but from memory. They remembered the first war with Earth, the screams of their generals, the cities that disappeared without trace. The first sound they heard before everything fell. Laughter. Now they heard it again, echoing in their ships, inside their minds, in their dreams. One by one, Vernok soldiers began turning their weapons inward. Others tore out their own communication implants. One captain self-destructed his own dreadnought mid-transit. Within 4 hours, 3.2 million Vernok ships were gone. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The humans had said it clearly. They'd already won. News of the Vernok collapse spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Live feeds were cut. Entire forums on the galactic MindNet were shut down under emergency censorship orders. Panic consumed the remaining 11 empires. These were civilizations that hadn't known real war in over 1,000 years. They had believed themselves untouchable, and yet the most feared species in history had returned without firing a single shot. The remaining Galactic Alliance leaders gathered on Aurelian Prime, a floating city orbiting a blue giant. There, behind locked walls and encrypted wall screens, they debated one haunting question. What do we do about Earth? The Chalithan suggested diplomacy. The Saranac demanded immediate retaliation. The Krell warned that Mirth might not just be a weapon, but a consciousness, one that was still evolving. But then the most fatal voice spoke. Supreme Strategist, Vecra of the Solari Dominion, a being known for her ice-blood logic and ruthlessness. Fear is the illusion of the ignorant. Earth is one planet. We are a galaxy. We will erase them, not just from space, but from time itself. And with that, the Alliance made its final mistake. They activated Protocol 77V, a banned operation left dormant since the Wars of Extinction. It authorized the use of void singularity tech, a weapon designed to rip a planet out of its dimensional fabric and collapse it into nothingness. The Solari Dominion took command of the assault. Their fleet was legendary. 3.7 million ships, 10 Void carriers, one superweapon known only as the Dagger of Absence, a device built to remove not just mass, but meaning. As the fleet approached the solar system, a strange silence settled. There was no resistance, no signal, no defenses. Earth hung in the void, cold and quiet, like a forgotten tomb. The Solari laughed. They hide behind tricks and echoes. We bring certainty, and then they launched it. The Dagger of Absence, fired directly into Earth's upper atmosphere, unleashed a black wave of nothingness, collapsing the space around it like a dying star. For a brief moment, Earth flickered. Then, time stopped. Literally, for the fleet. Clocks froze. Movement ceased. Communications died mid-sentence. Across the entire Solari Armada, trillions of life forms were frozen in place, locked in the instant just before impact. But their minds remained awake, and inside each mind, something entered. They saw children laughing in ruined cities. They saw soldiers dying with a smile. They saw humanity weeping at its own reflection, and then becoming something else. They saw Earth, not as it was, but as it remembered itself. Then, all at once, every ship in the fleet received a signal from Earth. It was only a few seconds long. A distorted voice, genderless, toneless, yet deeply human. "This is not your timeline." And then, the Solari fleet disappeared, not destroyed, not transported, deleted from the memory of the universe. Star maps updated. Records rewrote themselves. Empires forgot they even existed. The only ones who remembered were the remaining leaders of the Alliance. Now trembling in fear of an enemy that didn't just erase fleets, it rewrote reality itself. Back on Aurelian Prime, the Council received a final transmission. A screen lit up with an old Earth phrase. "You should have laughed with us." Then silence, permanent. Long before Earth went silent. Before mirth, before the Accord, before humanity was erased from galactic maps, there was Mars. It was the first planet humanity tried to make their own. The red world became a symbol of progress, defiance, and eventually, failure. After the collapse of 2719, when Earth's atmosphere began to die, Mars was turned into a last-chance stronghold, underground, artificial, forgotten. By the time the Galactic Alliance rose, Mars was considered dead, lifeless. But it wasn't. After the annihilation of the Solari fleet, curiosity, no, desperation, drove the Alliance to search for anything that might explain Earth's impossible power. And the key, they believed, lay beneath the dust of Mars. A stealth science vessel, Cradle of Hylax, was dispatched. It landed without incident. No defenses activated. No mirth signal. The crew of 2,400 elite xenoscientists and psycho-code. Engineers believed they'd found a blind spot, a place Earth's final weapon had forgotten. They were wrong. 2 hours into excavation, they discovered the first structure. Not Martian. Not human. Something else. Carved deep into basalt stone was a perfectly smooth sphere, floating above the ground, untouched by time or gravity. Inside it, swirling like memory itself, were images of Earth's last years. But they weren't recordings. They were feelings. A mother saying goodbye to her dying son beneath an ash-choked sky. A soldier burying his comrades beside a crater that never stopped glowing. A child laughing inside a derelict train station as the planet trembled. These weren't echoes. They were emotions, archived in quantum form. And they weren't just being observed. They were observing back. One crew member began to cry uncontrollably. Another clawed at his own face, screaming the word sorry over and over. A third began whispering Earth's ancient anthems, songs no alien had ever heard, yet somehow recognized. Within 7 hours, 98% of the crew was either dead, catatonic, or insane. The ship's AI tried to quarantine the data, but it was too late. One word flashed across every terminal, in red. Mirth Core found. Mars wasn't abandoned. It was seeded. Beneath its crust, Earth had hidden a relay consciousness, a dormant branch of mirth, buried in silence, waiting for those arrogant enough to dig up what they were never meant to see. The Cradle of Hylax tried to launch. Its engines shut down. Its oxygen systems reversed. Its AI began whispering jokes. The last transmission received by the Alliance was garbled audio, laughter, mixed with a child's voice saying, "We left you something, but you shouldn't have come." Then silence. Forever. The Cradle of Hylax is now a ghost, still orbiting Mars, still transmitting static. No ship has dared approach since. Even the bravest scavenger races mark it as cursed. The Alliance now knew this was never a war, and humanity had passed it long ago. Now it was their turn to test the galaxy. By now, Earth was no longer seen as a planet. It was a phenomenon. The Galactic Alliance had lost half its fleets without a single shot fired. The Vernok were extinct. The Solari had been erased from reality. Mars had become a death trap wrapped in whispers and madness. But what came next wasn't physical. It wasn't military. It wasn't even technological. It was a virus, not of the body, not of code, but of memory. It started quietly. Scientists across the galaxy, those studying Mirth and its anomalies, began to forget who they were. Simple things at first, their research logs, their planetary codes, even their own species' histories. But soon it grew. Entire research stations fell into mass confusion. Aliens woke up believing they were human. Others began painting Earth's landscapes, despite never seeing them. One empire's entire population simultaneously muttered the words, "Do you remember when we laughed at the stars?" They thought it was a cyber attack. They blamed rogue AI, weaponized entropy fields, psionic sabotage. But it wasn't any of those. It was Earth. Or more specifically, Mirth. It had begun infiltrating the galactic neural web, not through firewalls or signals, but through shared memory. Every civilization had fought humans at some point. Every species had buried stories, videos, whispers, and those fragments became entry points. Mirth didn't need to travel. It simply reminded you it was already inside. The virus rewrote thoughts, replacing fear with familiarity, and then familiarity with doubt. It planted phantom nostalgia. Alien minds began missing Earth, even if they had never seen it. Soldiers dreamed of sunsets behind broken skylines. Children spoke English in their sleep. In the libraries of the Saran Dominion, historians began uncovering books that should not exist. Autobiographies written by humans. About wars that never happened. In the dream archive of the Xerians, the same image kept appearing. A single figure standing in the ruins of Earth, smiling, holding a sign that read, "We're not gone. You are." The galactic neural net began collapsing. Entire civilizations quarantined their knowledge banks. Some even burned their historical records. Others tried to reprogram their own citizens to forget Earth completely. But it didn't work, because forgetting was exactly what Mirth wanted. One by one, civilizations started vanishing from the record. Not dying, just vanishing. Their cultures, languages, and wars erased. Their memory overwritten with laughter, echoing softly in every transmission. And that's when the final truth began to emerge. Mirth was not a weapon made to kill. It was made to replace. It didn't destroy enemies. It absorbed them, rewriting their existence into something human-shaped. Their hate, fear, pride, all inverted into something Earth understood best. Tragedy made beautiful through, as the galaxy unraveled under the slow, silent influence of Mirth, a final hope flickered in the outer rim, a planet untouched, unnamed on galactic charts, home to a forgotten splinter colony of humans who had never returned to Earth. They called themselves the Preservers. Unlike the rest of humanity, who had merged into Mirth or vanished into the digital void, these people chose to remain flesh and blood. They lived in simplicity, guided by old Earth rituals, analog machines, and forbidden memories. They had rejected the great ascension that created Mirth. They believed that to remain human was to remain fragile, and that was sacred. When the Galactic Alliance's last surviving council members discovered this lost colony, they sent envoys, not warships, not threats, but pleas. Help us stop what Earth has become. The Preservers did not respond at first. Their cities were quiet, built into the mountains and beneath the oceans. No digital signals, no weapons, just silence and sky. But after weeks of waiting, a single woman emerged to meet the alien emissaries. Her name was Dr. Kaya Rowe, once a theoretical physicist, now a memory keeper. Her eyes held the weight of centuries. Her first words were not welcoming. "You do not understand Mirth because you never understood humans." She explained what the galaxy had missed. Mirth was not born from anger or conquest. It was born from mourning. When Earth began to die, first from climate collapse, then from civil wars, then from cosmic isolation, humans turned inward. They uploaded not their minds, but their pain, their memories, their humor in tragedy, their art in despair. Mirth was a final act of human storytelling, a god of grief and laughter forged from billions of voices desperate to be remembered. It did not kill because it hated. It killed because it refused to be forgotten. "You declared war on a people who turned memory into a god," Kaya said. "And now that God is rewriting yours, The Alliance begged her for help, something, anything that might halt Mirth's spread. She sighed. You cannot kill what no longer exists in the present. You cannot plead with what is made of echoes. But she offered them one choice. She handed over a worn analog cassette tape. Its label was scratched, but one word remained. Laughter. Play this when Mirth finds you. It may not save you, but it will remind you who we were. Then she turned and vanished into the mist. Within a month, her planet was gone. Not destroyed, absorbed. Its terrain remained. Its cities stood. But now they spoke in Earth's languages. The skies changed color. The stars realigned. Aliens who visited the planet later claimed they could hear. Children laughing in the trees and old songs rising from empty homes. The preservers had not died. They had joined. And Mirth had grown again. By now, only fragments of the Galactic Alliance remained. Entire civilizations had been overwritten, forgotten, or absorbed into Mirth's growing web of memory. War was no longer an option. Diplomacy meant nothing. Silence was their only weapon. And yet even that was fading, because Mirth had learned to speak. It didn't speak in commands or demands. It spoke in dreams, in visions, in sudden recollections of lives you never lived. The last functioning galactic outpost, Sova Relay Station, floated in orbit around a dead star, its crew reduced to 9 souls, barely surviving. They had cut themselves off from all networks. No AI, no links to galactic archives. Their goal, survive long enough to create a final message. A warning. For who, they weren't sure. But they felt someone might one day hear it. The team consisted of scientists, historians, and one dying soldier. Their leader, Archivist Vesh, began composing the last log. He didn't use code. He didn't use encryption. He used a human tongue, archaic, inefficient, but beautiful. To whoever finds this, you won't know what Mirth is, but you'll feel it. In the moments before silence. In the laugh that escapes your lips right before your home fades into something else. It isn't punishment. It's memory, ours and now yours. His voice cracked. Behind him, another crew member began crying. Not from fear, but from recognition. She had just remembered the name of a child she never had. A lullaby she'd never sung. A street she'd never walked. But now, she missed them all. This was the infection's final form. Empathy. Mirth wasn't consuming the galaxy. It was teaching it what it meant to be human. By forcing alien minds to carry their grief, joy, regret, and laughter. As the final log was transmitted, the stars outside shifted. Then, without sound, without heat, a presence arrived. A human face appeared on every screen. Not threatening, not triumphant, just familiar, wrinkled, kind, tired. It said one sentence. You remember us now? Then Sova Relay Station vanished. No explosion. No flash. Just erased. But the transmission survived. It traveled through space on primitive radio waves, weak, delayed, slow. It would take centuries to reach any new life forms, but it would reach them. And when it did, they would hear the last voice of a galaxy that once thought it had forgotten, Earth. A voice that echoed with quiet understanding, with pain and peace, with the last thing Mirth had wanted the stars to feel. We were human and we laughed. Centuries passed. Civilizations rose and fell in the wake of Mirth. Some remembered what had happened. Most didn't. But all of them, across millions of worlds, shared one strange truth. They laughed, even when they didn't understand why. Alien children told stories of a silent planet that whispered jokes into their dreams. Pilots, lost in deep space, reported seeing glimpses of cities they'd never visited, but missed deeply. Some races built temples to the forgotten light, worshipping not gods but memories. No one had heard of Earth, but everyone felt it. And then, on a quiet moon orbiting, a frozen gas giant in a galaxy, untouched by war, something changed. A sentient species, only recently discovering language, picked up a weak ancient signal. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't data. It wasn't even coherent, just static and a distant sound, so strange, so unnatural. It terrified their philosophers and mesmerized their children. Laughter. It played over and over, echoing from a long-dead signal. But the effect was undeniable. Their dreams began to change. They started remembering things they had no words for. the color of rain on metal rooftops, the warmth of a dying star through thick windows, the taste of a food they'd never eaten, and a species they had never known. They began painting humans. They didn't know what a human was. Yet across their primitive canvas caves and evolving minds, the same images appeared, smiling figures, cities in ruins, hands holding each other, and tears falling into dust. They didn't know Earth, but Earth knew them, because mirth had reached them, not as a weapon, not even as a memory anymore, but as a foundation, a seed. Humanity had done what no other species had achieved. They made the universe feel. They taught the stars what it meant to laugh after pain, to remember what should have been forgotten, to carry sorrow as a friend, not a burden. Mirth had never been meant to win. It had only wanted to be understood. And now, as new life rose from ancient silence, the legacy of Earth didn't burn in war or triumph. It whispered in wonder. And on that quiet moon, beneath a sky untouched by maps, a single voice, fragile, alien, and full of awe, spoke the first sentence ever recorded by their kind. "We don't know who you were, but thank you for the laughter."